Hello, Billings.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for coming out on this nice little warm day in September. My name is Sid Dowd. I'm the chair of the Montana Libertarian Party, and I'm also a city councilor up in Kalispell, Montana. I'm an Army vet, and Kalispell has about 12% veterans. Montana has about 10%, so you guys have a rich tradition there. I'd like to kick us off right now and tell you a little bit about the Montana Libertarian Party. I'm not going to give you a huge plug here, but if you're willing to start dipping your toe into libertarianism, go to www.mtlp.org, and you can learn about our platform. You can learn about our candidates that are running this year. We have 20 running around Montana, and you can learn how to join, volunteer, donate, and run for office. It doesn't cost you anything to join the Montana Libertarian Party. We have a couple candidates that are going to talk to you today, and I'm going to start us off with Mr. John Lamb, running for Senate District 36, just south of Bozeman. Come on up, John.
Hello, thank you for everyone that's come out tonight. My name is John Lamb. I'm a state Senate candidate for the Libertarian Party in District 36. That's out of Madison County, Montana, just west of Bozeman. I've been an activist for many years, advocating for the freedom and liberties for many people around this country. Incarcerated prisoners that have been wrongfully imprisoned, a lot of veterans throughout the state of Montana and other states. And as a candidate, that's my main goal, is to advocate for the liberty and freedoms for every individual and less government. I believe in a small government. I don't believe in the large government that we have right now that puts all these regulations and in tyranny that disregards our Constitution. Our Constitution is one of the most important things, I think, of this country and the Founding Fathers give us. So I 100% stand behind the Constitution. I think that's our biggest guideline. I am honored to be here today, and I'm going to vote for Joe Jorgensen. That's who I'm going to vote for. So thank you, everyone, for coming, and that's about all I have to say. I'm going to give this back to Sid here, but thanks again.
All right, thanks, John. Next up, we're going to hear from Richard Armerding. He's running for House District 98 up in Great Falls. Come on over. I'm sorry, Missoula.
Sorry, Great Falls, I'm not moving. Good afternoon, I'm Richard Armerding, and I've been a member of the Libertarian Party for over 40 years. I'm currently running for the Montana House of Representatives for the 98th District, which is basically West Missoula County. I describe myself as a Christian and a libertarian because I believe that those two philosophies are both consistent and compatible. They will instruct my decisions in public office as they have in private life. With apologies to Abraham Lincoln, it is clear that politicians can please some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but they cannot please all of the people all of the time. The present polarization between the Democrats and the Republicans has reached the point where only a third political party can bring America together again, and that party is the Libertarian Party. I won't pretend that libertarians can give all the people all that they want. I am sure that most of you will find that the libertarian philosophy aligns with your core values, so that you will be comfortable joining libertarians to address the challenges that we face in the 4 years coming, both at home and abroad. American voters are tired of the all or nothing approach of the other two parties. As a nation, we have to arrive from time to time at compromises on certain issues, just to move forward in prosperity and freedom. But to keep, not just for that reason, but also to keep our nation from actually breaking apart. Most Americans are not extremists. Each one of us knows what we believe, and we also understand that other Americans don't always agree with us on every issue. But if we're honest with ourselves, We understand that we must all come together at some middle ground with which we can all live. I suspect that many Republicans are tired of Donald Trump's mismanagement of foreign and domestic policy, but they're not comfortable with the Biden direction. I suspect that many Democrats would rather have a stronger standard bearer than Joe Biden, but they're not comfortable with what Trump will do. Neither candidate is willing to bring all Americans together to step away from the edge and collaborate in constructive action. Instead of voting for the lesser of two evils, I challenge Americans to vote for Dr. Jo Jorgensen, the one candidate who brings no political baggage with her, a fresh voice of leadership who will not tear America apart, but will bring us together on domestic issues. And on international policy, Dr. Jo Jorgensen will also bring honor and sanity back to our policy. A philosopher once said that every nation gets the government it deserves. We tend to vote for the person we think will win, even if we don't really want him to win. People will say that to vote libertarian is to throw away your vote. How can it be wrong to vote for what you really want? If everyone votes their conscience in November, I think you will be amazed at the outcome. And that outcome will be Dr. Jo Jorgensen as the 46th President of the United States.
Thank you, Richard. Next, we're going to hear from Melody Benes. Come on up, Melody. Melody's running for House District here in Billings.
Hi guys, I hope you're having a great afternoon. My name is Melody Benes and I'm candidate for Montana House District 43. And I want to tell you why I'm running. I'm running because the American government has grown so massive it cannot sustain itself, and it's on the verge of imploding just as Rome had. Our laws have become so numerous and complicated that by design we are ignorant of the law itself. James Madison warned about this convoluted system and how it poisons the blessings of liberty. We are witnessing this today. From the time I was a young girl, I took an interest in politics. My favorite classes were history and civics. The highlights of my day were discussing what I learned with my dad. That was my first experience with political discourse. As I got older, I witnessed our society progress away from that discourse to an actual division. So, I decided to devote my life to studying the history, science, and theory behind politics, hoping that someday I could make a positive impact on where we fall short today. There are too few in politics who understand what political science actually is. It is the study of how we form societies. As Aristotle says, man is a political animal. We are social creatures with the ability to reason and to speak. We have the opportunity to use this ability to secure the blessings of liberty or to not to. Americans place liberty at the forefront of what they value. We are all familiar with the phrase life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But without liberty, the other two are unobtainable. There have been many before me who have fought to preserve our liberty. That is why many people join the Libertarian Party. They believe there is a better way, that we deserve a better way, or at the very least another option. That is why I joined. That is why I devote my life to the pursuit of knowledge that will help forge the path that many of us have chose to travel. We chose this path not just for ourselves, but for our posterity and our neighbors. We chose this because we value the equality and liberty of all of us. America was founded by the people, for the people. We have forgotten this fact. We are divided and have quickly devolved from the republic we were founded on. 244 years ago, we had cast off the chains of tyranny. Today, we willingly put them on. We put faith in politicians with vague promises, but truthfully, they only aid in our division. We are so disappointed and think America has failed because we have fallen short of the ideals America was founded on. But I'm here to tell you that there is hope. We can achieve these ideals. We can unite again. For hundreds of years, we have been unable to hold politicians accountable because we are only provided two options. The only way to hold them accountable is to vote them out. The only way to do this is by having more options. Our current politicians only care about power and winning. We need more options. We have more options. There is another way than the old way. It is time we come together and once again cast off the chains of tyranny.
Thank you, Melody. I'd like to share with you a Taoist precept that is pretty close to my heart. It says, unlearn something every day. It's time for America to unlearn that the two parties are the answer moving forward. It's time to unlearn that it is our responsibility to effect regime change in other countries. It's time to unlearn that drug use and addiction is a legal problem. We need to unlearn that it is okay for our government to trade our liberties for the promise of security. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for your support this evening, and please give another round of applause for our speakers today, John, Richard, and Melody. Without any further ado, we know that you are all here. We know that you are all with her, and she's with us. Your next President of the United States, Dr. Joe Jorgensen.
Thank you for that. Oh, wow. Thanks for bringing the sun out for me. I don't think I've seen it in about a week, so thank you for coming out here. I want to start by telling you about my grandmother, who gave me the love I have for my country. She was an immigrant who would tell me about the old country and explain how in the old country, it didn't matter how hard you worked, and it didn't matter if you took an extra job or two, that the government just took the extra money away so that everybody pretty much lived the same life. And listening to her, it might sound like she was from the Soviet Union or some Eastern Bloc country. Actually, she was from Denmark. And unfortunately, our country is headed towards Denmark every day. It was her vision of liberty and the basic principles of the Libertarian Party that bring me here today. As you can see our bus, we've been crisscrossing the country, talking with a lot of people. And everywhere I go, I hear people say, you know what? The old system just isn't working. We need to have change. Rather than waiting another generation for career politicians in Washington to fix things, I think that you know best what's best for you. And that's why I'm running and asking for your vote for President of the United States. As your president, I will get government out of the way so my grandmother's vision of the American dream can be a reality for us all. Our current government is too big, too bossy, too nosy, too intrusive, and what gives them the right? We need to put the decision-making power out of their hands and put it back into your hands, because you know better than any special interest lobbyist or bureaucrat in Washington. Americans would never budget to spend $80 billion every year to keep families apart from their loved ones. But that's what our government does with its prison system. We cannot claim to be the land of the free when we lead the world in incarcerations. We have 5% of the world's population, but house 20% of its prisoners. And one of the biggest factors that's led to a quadrupling of the prison population since the 1980s is the racist and destructive war on drugs. In particular, the mandatory minimums have taken discretion out of the hands of judges and instead force mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters to be put in jail for 10, 20 years, sometimes even for life, for a supposed crime that has no victim. All we have to do is take a step back to the Prohibition era to see the parallels. Despite realizing how poorly alcohol prohibition went, we have created a carbon copy. Drug kingpins are now replaced with mob bosses, and drug dens have replaced speakeasies. When was the last time you heard of a liquor store owner going up and down the halls of a high school, trying to push gin on high school students? Or when's the last time you heard of a vodka addict breaking into houses in order to support a vodka habit? And last, when was the last time you heard of two liquor store owners having a shootout over who has the best corner? What we have now is not a drug problem. What we have is a prohibition problem. There should be no law to prevent you from owning any object, whether it's a gun to protect yourself or drugs for whatever reason you wish. If there is no victim, there is no crime. As your president, I will federally decriminalize drugs and encourage states to treat drug use as a health issue, not a criminal issue. We should allow the medical community to deal with substance abuse in a way that salvages lives instead of throwing them away. Accordingly, I will pardon anyone convicted at the federal level of victimless crimes. This is just one step toward ending the over-incarceration of people of color and letting consensual adult activities become safer and destigmatized. In addition to overcrowding our federal prisons, the war on drugs has negatively affected communities and the interactions that many people have with police. The drug war has single-handedly created gangs that police themselves, which often lead to violence. Consequently, the federal government has created a police state, including the Drug Enforcement Agency, which spends about $3 billion of our tax dollars every year. They have repeatedly raided medical marijuana clinics where medical marijuana is perfectly legal. Unfortunately, long gone is a local friendly police officer who walks the beat and knows everybody by name. Instead, we've had the federal government import nameless, faceless SWAT teams that make our streets feel to many Americans like they are combatants in their own neighborhoods. And it doesn't stop with the DEA. In recent months, we've seen the Department of Homeland Security, which receives another $50 billion in tax dollars, patrolling our streets in military fatigues and armored cars. As your president, I will defund federal involvement in policing, including the DEA and DHS. That means ending the supplying of surplus military equipment like tanks and tear gas to the over 8,000 federal, state, and local police forces. I will end no-knock raids, which too often end up killing innocent bystanders like Breonna Taylor. And as Libertarian Congressman Justin Amash has brought up, when people do misbehave, it's nearly impossible to take legal action against police because of an arcane doctrine known as qualified immunity, which says that you can only successfully sue a police officer when clear civil rights violations have already been established in a prior case. When I am president, I will end qualified immunity so police are held to the same standard as everyone else. While millions of Americans have suffered from government's war on drugs, almost every American has suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic in some way. South Korea confirmed its first coronavirus within a day of our first case and quickly jumped ahead in testing, containing the spread. As infections in the U.S. skyrocketed, South Korea nearly eradicated COVID-19, and they did so without any lockdowns. A testing initiative by Bill Gates was the first to roll out tests in the US that could be done outside the hospital system. Over the course of 10 weeks, they processed 20,000 tests. But on May 12th, the FDA stopped them from further testing, telling them that they needed, quote, further assessment. This is just one example of how the FDA has worsened the COVID-19 crisis and made it extremely difficult for anyone to get tested. Currently, only those companies with enough money and resources can even get FDA approval. And once they do, they weaponize their patents and hold a monopoly. It costs about $1 billion to bring a new drug to market, and thanks to the FDA, it's about a 10-year process. Meanwhile, it's the patients who suffer, desperately waiting for drugs that could save their lives. New medicines and procedures should get to patients as quickly and safely as possible. When I am your president, I will get rid of the efficacy requirement of the FDA, if not the FDA entirely. The FDA is not the only issue with the American healthcare system. Let's be honest, it's not working for anyone. And my heart breaks for the millions of Americans who have been left behind, those families who have been bankrupted. Now, for decades, politicians have blamed it on the free market system, saying that what we need instead is a single payer system. Well, I have news for them. We haven't had anything close to a free market system in nearly a century, and the alternative to our current big government failure isn't an even bigger government failure. When politicians say we need Medicare for all, what I'm hearing them say is we need VA hospital for all. This top-down monopoly is unacceptable for any person, let alone those who are willing to sacrifice their lives for our country. We cannot wait for government bureaucrats to decide who lives and who dies. We must put control back into the hands of people, into the hands of patients. Now, as I see it, the biggest problem with the American healthcare system is that our insurance isn't really insurance at all. In any other industry, insurance only covers unexpected costs. That way, costs remain relatively low. Imagine if your car insurance, for instance, paid for gas, oil, and car washes. First of all, you would have absolutely no reason to shop around for the best gasoline prices. In fact, you might go to the most expensive gas station because it's close by and they offer free coffee while you wait. I mean, what do you care? You just give them your little $5 copay card and you're on your way. Therefore, gas stations would have absolutely no reason to compete. In fact, they could raise prices without you even knowing. How would they do that? They simply pass it on to the big insurance companies, and the car insurance companies would simply pay the price and raise your premiums next year. This is exactly what's been happening with the healthcare system. We as patients have no reason to shop around for the best prices, and consequently, healthcare providers have absolutely no reason to compete with each other. Insurance companies can charge higher prices without any accountability, and we're the ones left footing the bill. Now, two of the best examples of a free market system are in Singapore and in the state of Indiana. In Singapore, their costs are about 1/3 of what they are in the United States. And if you look at the state of Indiana, they offer their state employees, a program in which most of them voluntarily jumped on within just 2 years because they got to keep the savings. This is the type of system I want to have for our veterans, in which we put healthcare dollars into the hands of veterans and let them spend it. Let them decide how and when and where to use them, instead of subjecting them to the VA monopoly. The government letdown of our soldiers does not begin with health care. It begins from the day they enlist. Unfortunately, Many of those enlisted weren't even born when the War on Terror began. The U.S. spends more on military than the next 7 countries combined, and we are in 160 countries around the globe. And what do we have to show for it? In the last 20 years alone, over 500,000 people have died in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan, including 250,000 civilians. Now, those are mothers and fathers, siblings and children who will never return home. In every election, politicians always promise more peace, but they only deliver more war. If I'm elected president, my first official act will be to bring our troops home. I'm going to turn America into one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral. Our military must be trained to defend our shores, but we have to stop meddling around the world and make peace with our world neighbors. The military budget, unfortunately, is far from the only example of how the government has misdirected the economy. The IRS taxes Americans at every turn, and the tax system is so complicated that only those who can afford personal accountants and tax lawyers can even navigate the code. That same IRS that taxes us to death looks into every personal financial decision of ours to decide how much we should pay. Meanwhile, the federal government itself accumulates debt. Now, half of those in Washington say we need to increase the military budget, while the other half say we need to increase domestic spending. So what's our bipartisan compromise? They simply increase all spending. As your president, my veto pen is going to need a lot of extra ink. Runaway spending is also made possible by the Federal Reserve. When the federal government isn't able to raise taxes, it simply prints more money. Without any backing, the Fed has since the Fed was created over a century ago, the American dollar has lost 96% of its value. We need to reduce regulations to also allow cryptocurrency and any other form of currency to enter the market. When I am elected president, I am going to first audit and then end the Federal Reserve. I will eliminate the IRS and work with Congress towards eliminating the federal income tax altogether. It's time to move money out of the government sector and back to the people who earned it. Politicians and bureaucrats don't know what you need, you do. When it comes to cutting spending, we cannot take any solutions off the table. I would encourage baseline budgeting. So instead of simply assuming we have an increase every year, we start at zero and only add the vital elements that we need. It's time for government to balance its own checkbook, the same way American families do. Now, given the challenges we face as a country, it's easy to feel like the change I'm talking about can't happen. But I believe it can because I believe in you. I believe in the individuals who make up our country. I see America through my grandmother's eyes, a place where the rights of the individual are greater than the power of government. A place where freedom means minimum government and maximum freedom. A place where the American dream isn't a dream at all. It's real and it's right there in front of you because you made it happen. As I ask for your vote this November, it's not because I'm asking you to cast a vote for me. Instead, I think you should vote for you. You know best how to spend your money. You know best what your family's priorities are. You know best what's best for you. Thank you very much. And I would love to take questions.
All right, guys, I'm doing Q&A. If you could line up right here for any questions for Joe, speak loudly and clearly into the mic.
Hi,
Hey.
definitely cool to meet you. I've been following the Facebook and Twitter, everything, and
Well, thank you.
absolutely love everything you stand for. I wanted to ask how you felt about